You may never really lose yourself to the extent that I wish you would, but nevertheless, I'll tell you. Last Saturday, a friend of mine in from New York, she came in during the week and she was here on Friday. And I invited her to dinner on Saturday with a few other friends of hers out here. She called during the day and asked if she could come early. Could she come at 4 instead of 5 when I invited them? That she had things to tell me, and they would not understand it, and she would feel ill at ease in the presence of others in discussing these things. Now let me go back a little while with this lady. I met her here in this city 20-odd years ago. She was a beautiful young woman, about 30, a model. She had bought a little home for her parents and she was paying off the mortgage. And she said to me then, this is now 20-odd years ago, I've always dreamed of going to Paris, and I really don't have the money. I have enough in the bank to go tourist and live for just 1 week in a modest way. Go to some small little hotel or maybe some little rooming place, and only for a week. I couldn't afford beyond that. And even that seems stupid now when I think that I'm still paying off on the house. I said, you're asking the wrong person for advice, because I'm not a rational person when it comes to the world. To me, I do not go along with the reasoning mind. I am talking of an entirely different principle. I am speaking of imagination, and imagination to me is Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ to me is God. And there is nothing but God, and all things are possible to God. If you want me to give you a reason for going or not going, do not ask me. You want to go, and you have just enough for a quick one. 1 week in Paris, maximum. Go tourist and live modestly and come back. Well, she didn't tell me what she would do, but she did go. On the second day in Paris, on a blind date, she met a man, 23 years her senior. He was already married 5 times. There was no offspring, but they fell in love. He divorced his 5th, married her, and they were blessed with a child, the image of that man. When I saw pictures of him, he was born in Russia, when I saw pictures of him, it could have been pictures of his little boy. Through the years. Well, the man is very wealthy. He came into a fortune. International business. Factories here in our country, factories in Paris, factories in Puerto Rico, and factories all over. A very, very wealthy man. He went wild over this offspring. Well, as the boy grew, he was then 2.5 years old, and one night I had a vision, and I saw a little boy. He was about 5 years old, handsome beyond measure. And he told me that I was his father. I said, well, if I'm your father, then when are you going to come on earth and be my son? So I'm your father. Are you coming down to earth and be my son? He said, yes. I said, when? He said, on the 10th of November. I said, you are? Now this is late September. So I said to my wife the next morning, I said, darling, you know you're going to have a baby on the 10th of November. Well, she said, I really believe all that you teach, but after all, this is ridiculous. I'm not even pregnant. This is late September. I'm going to have a son on the 10th of November. She said, no, that is out. I said, all right, that's what he told me anyway. That night in New York City at my lecture, this lady appeared. Her little boy was 2.5, and she was away out in hell. She looked as though she could have it right then. So I said to her, when do you expect your son? She said, no son. I'm going to have a daughter. Joseph and I, we want a daughter. Don't want any son, we have our son. I said, well, when do you expect your child then? She said, oh, the doctor said around early January. I said, should your son be born on the 10th of November, may I tell you his name? His name is Neville Mark, because that's what he told me. Well, on the 10th of November, she had her little boy, and she called him Neville Mark. Well, the family now of 4, the 2 boys, and they grew. When the first one, the image of his father, Larry, reached the age of 18, they sent him off to college in England. Pardon me. And one morning, on a Saturday morning, I got a call from her, and she said, Larry is dead. Didn't prepare me at all. It was, Larry is dead. I said, what are you talking about? She said, I've just got a call from the headmaster of the college in London. Larry was killed today, suddenly, in this automobile accident. 1 of 5, but he was the only one killed. The others survived. He wasn't driving the car, he was in the car. And we are leaving within an hour. Joseph and Neville and myself were leaving in the hour to go to London. So they did, and brought back the ashes of Larry and scattered it in Central Park. She went into shock, completely shocked. And for 2 months, she wasn't here. Her husband called me long distance. He wrote me, said what to do. I do not know what to do. Should I put her into some asylum? Should I bring in something? Because she is not here. She refuses to be part of this world. But you do not know this woman. She has a determination that is like steel. You can't divert her. She can take any goal in this world and realize it. And she had one goal now. She had to know about Larry. If what I'm teaching is true, that all things exist in the human imagination, then Larry existed in her imagination. And she had to see him and touch him and know that he survived. She said, my religion failed me. My philosophies failed me. I couldn't open a book. Nothing could in any way encourage me or support me. And I lived in this state, just completely in shock, to the despair of my family. And on this morning, 2 months later, I felt something surging within me, surging and surging. And then out of my own being, here comes Larry. He is seated on the side of this chair in my bedroom. It's my bedroom. He lived on the 33rd floor on Central Park South. Here is Larry. And then I said, Larry, there? Well, I can put myself there too. And she did. I sat right next to him and felt him. Then I brought Neville, and he sat next to me. And here the 3 of us, I've never seen Larry so beautiful. His face was just like velvet. You've never seen such beauty of skin as Larry. And we communicated without the use of words. And he said to me, Mother, I didn't want to hurt you. And here he's talking to me without any use of words, but he's telling me, and I'm listening. Then I said to Neville, Neville, go and get Daddy. Daddy was then in the living room. This is the early hours of the morning, about 6. Go and get Daddy and tell Daddy to come. And the minute he got up and started towards the living room to bring his father, something happened in her and something broke. And then the whole thing faded. But she said, at that moment, I was completely cured. I had a pain that no doctor could help. No philosopher could help. No religious person could help. No book could help. Here I am in a pain that no one could understand. It was a physical pain. My body was racked with it. And at that moment, I was completely relieved of all sense of loss and all sense of pain, and I prove that all things do exist in my own wonderful human imagination. And that's where Larry was. I brought him out as an objective being, seemingly independent of my perception of him. And he sat on the side of that chair, on the arm of the chair, that big chair in my bedroom, and Neville sat on the other arm. I sent Neville to call Daddy, and then I went in. After it broke, I then got off the bed. And I went into the living room, and here was Joseph reading the paper. And I told him what had just happened. And do you know, he was just like a shadow. A shadow that talked. I looked at my husband, and here he's only a shadow. A talking shadow. That day I had to go out. And I went down the street shopping. And everyone was but a shadow. Talking shadows. The whole vast world was but a shadow. And so when we say, all that you behold, though it appears without, it is within, in your own wonderful human imagination, of which this world of mortality is but a shadow. Everything here seems so real. Cut it and it bleeds. It is only a shadow. And she was cured instantly when she, out of her own being, conjured her son and made him sit on the arm of the chair. And she herself brought her own being out of it and sat in the center on that chair. And then brought Neville, who was sound asleep in his own room. And then said to him, go and get Daddy. Let him come and see how beautiful Larry is. Skin like velvet. So altogether lovely. She never saw him so beautiful. And he's saying to her, Mother, I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't want to hurt you. And so, then the whole thing faded, and she realized that what I told her before, that all things exist in the human imagination, was true. We are living in a shadow world. The immortal man is your own wonderful human imagination. That man can never die. That's Jesus Christ. You are the Lord Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ is not some intangible thing. You speak of imagination. It's defined in the script, in the dictionary, as the picture-forming faculty of the mind. It's defined as that which can conjure and create an idea or an image independent of objective reality.